PNG Defence Force sends relief teams to Manam as islanders are without food supplies and clean water. And Rural Airstrips Agency committed to giving access.
This is National EMTV News with Godwin Eki.
Good evening. Thanks for joining me for Monday's news. After the eruption of the Manam volcano on Saturday, the PNG Defence Force has sent in relief teams. The teams will ensure communication is set up and relief supplies move to the people of Manam currently on the island. The PNGDF held a joint conference with the National Disaster Office to give an update on the eruption.
Papua New Guinea Defence Forces deployed troops, a patrol boat and chopper to Manam Island to aid in logistics and to help assess the situation on the ground. An update was given by Brigadier General Gilbert Toropo and Defence Secretary Trevor Maori today in Port Moresby.
Since Sunday, PNG Defence Force had deployed a small command team to link up with the Madang Provincial Administration and Madang National Disaster Office. And they have coordinated some efforts together. And the early hours of this morning, around 3 o'clock, we've also deployed another 26 troops from Lay Engineer Battalion, consisting of medical team and relief troops to assist the Madang Provincial Administration and the Madang Disaster Office.
Toropo said the important component of the assistance was in supplying water and standing by for relocation of islanders away from the most affected areas.
Deployment of water and other relief supplies, and also we're looking at relocating other people, those people affected either on the other parts of the island or relocated back to the mainland.
Maori said the Defence Force patrol boat on standby will be used to ferry relief supplies to the island. A chopper will also be used to drop medical teams around the island and to set up communication links to report back to headquarters on the extent of damages.
The Madang provincial government and the provincial administrator are organizing some initial relief supplies at the moment. So these initial supplies, that includes water and some initial foodstuff, will be moved by the patrol boat across to Manam Island. Helicopters will help move the medical teams and most importantly the communication team to the island, so we can have some effective communication to determine exactly the status of the situation there.
Fidelis Sukina, National EMTV News.
Activity from the Manam volcano has subsided, but it is still being monitored. The National Disaster Office has also sent a team to get a full assessment of the content of the damage on the ground.
Martin Mose, Director of the National Disaster Office, says they have sent in a team to assess the extent of damage so far from the Manam volcano.
Our team from the National Disaster Team, the assessment team, have already been deployed to the island today as well, to help conduct the initial damage needs assessment to properly determine the level of assistance required on the island, especially by those communities that have been moved from as contaminated area to as free areas, if you like.
Moses said that the situation is being monitored by the Rabaul Volcano Observatory, the national institution responsible for monitoring volcanoes in Papua New Guinea. He said upon their advice, they will take on the next step in moving the villagers out of the island. He added that though the activity has subsided, they will not take it lightly.
On the island itself, that we have not deployed people or start moving people or evacuating onto mainland until situation on the island permits. I think the level of risk now, according to the prognosis from the RVO, it's at stage 3 level. That's the risk level. It's at stage 3. It's slightly high. And it's being monitored by the RVO. The level of activity, it will continue on for a while. It has subsided, of course, but we are not ruling out any possibility as yet.
Moses said it will take a few more months before the volcanic activity on the island can be fully assessed and adequate information given out.
I don't know how long they'll be there, but usually with the actual monitoring of the situation, according to RVO, it would take up around about 3 to 6 months at the most. for them to properly monitor the situation, the activity, and advise that whether it's all safe or there is something brewing that can, result to a high eruptivity on the island. So,
Fidelis Sukina, National EMTV News.
Communication problems faced by the Rabaul Volcano Observatory has seen them miss out on capturing the volcanic activity from the Manam volcano. This was revealed at the joint news conference today.
The Rabaul Volcano Observatory, responsible for monitoring volcanoes in Papua New Guinea, had problems with picking up activity on Manam Island before the volcano erupted.
Well, as you know, that RVO, our lead agency, our technical agency, is responsible for monitoring volcano eruptions throughout the country. Apparently, they actually have some problem there. The communication service provider was not able to have them link, if you like, if I could bluntly put it this way. So, monitoring opportunity was not there.
Mose didn't give any detailed information on the real reasons, but said, to be frank, they had their communication cut off.
The communication, support was not effectively there because of some problem they faced in terms of communication provider. They don't have, the communication network was actually cut off, if you like, to be quite frank about it. Yeah.
Mose did say the RVO have someone in place who is currently working on site on sending information to the observatory through mobile phone communication.
But they do have some arrangements in place to ensure that somebody on the ground picks up activity on the island and communicate by mobile, of course, to them. And they were able to use other means available, to confirm the actual situation and the ramps, everything else to determine the level.
Fidelis Sukina, National EMTV News.
You're watching National EMTV News. We go for our first break now, but stick around. We have more of today's stories when we come back. Welcome back to National EMTV News and to the latest now from the island. More than 5,000 people, including children at Manam Island, are without food and clean water after the volcano erupted on Saturday morning. A number of houses were also destroyed by volcanic lava, while 2 villages were completely destroyed on Saturday. This is the second day since the eruption, and islanders are crying for food, supplies and clean water to assist them. EMTV journalist Marta Luis was on the island yesterday.
This is the extent of the damages caused when Manam erupted on Saturday. Water sources, including wells covered by the ash, thrown out during the eruption. Food gardens were destroyed, houses covered in ash.
Apa mi kirap lo, side lo mi plan lo, side lo malawai. I mi go down, I mi bin bagrap mol kita. Garden na all kita diwai, na all kita plantation, all wanem coconut, cacao, na all disla, na house too. I mi bin brew go down, I mi cooking go down.
Coconut plantations were also destroyed. Coconut trees were uprooted and covered by ash. This has also put a strain on the islanders' economic activity.
Now is, our economic activity. Because of economic activity, most of us return on the island, and we are back on the island. Now that our coconuts and maybe pigs are gone, I don't know how we're going to sustain ourselves.
Marta Luis, National EMTV News, Bogia.
The National Department of Health, World Health Organization, UNICEF and Enga provincial government launched the polio vaccination program in Wabeg today. The launching in Wabeg, while 9 other provinces have also launched their program today. Heads of these organizations are in Wabeg to officially launch the program on behalf of the other provinces. Parents are being urged to bring their children to health centers to get their vaccines.
Parents in Enga province brought their children to Wabeg town today to get their first dose of vaccine. Health Secretary Pasco Kase urged parents to play their part by bringing their children to be vaccinated. The vaccines will be given to children below the age of 5 years old every 2 weeks until their final 4th dose.
Lokan round about kaka buhay na losing thing lot pikinini. Imi mas kisim pikinini now iko na bali giving polio marasilokan. So then imi rosin polio lo country blow imi once again.
Enga is one of the 4 provinces in Papua New Guinea where the polio virus was detected from a child in the Porgera district. So far, a total of 6 polio cases has been detected in Eastern Highlands, Morobe, Madang and Enga province. 20 years ago, PNG was able to eradicate the polio virus. With the detecting of the polio virus again, it has caught the attention of the World Health Organization, UNICEF and other world organizations to help PNG eradicate polio together.
That we care about you. We got rid of polio before, and together, all of us will make sure that we get rid of polio again.
Polio has no cure. It can only kill or paralyze children.
The polio virus spread very fast. They go along the way of the people travel. In Zimbabwe, they move from highway.
Business houses, public servants and citizens are being urged to work together to stop the spread of polio. Vasinata Yama, National EMTV News, Wabek.
Rubber farmers in Western Province are concerned that the rubber they produce is being bought at a price lower than the actual buying price. Kawito villagers in the North Flight district grow rubber to make an income, but the buying price is not satisfactory.
Kawito village is situated along the Fly River in Western Province. Villagers in Kawito rely heavily on money they receive from the sale of rubber. 31-year-old Omawa Gawaga is a community leader. His family, amongst others, grow rubber. The normal price for rubber is 3 kina per kilo. However, buyers are paying 80 toya for 1 kilogram.
Buyers only come low. One blood time, 2 weeks. Also giving me blood kiss him, tap him rubber. After 2 weeks, me blood also come buy him rubber. So this la, me blood satisfied this la. Me like him, me blood must tap him rubber. At the same time, me blood come sad him.
In Papua New Guinea, rubber plantations have been established in central and western provinces. Between 1950s and 1970s, rubber had contributed about 12% of the total income generated in the agriculture sector. However, most farmers turned to coffee and cocoa farming when the crops were introduced in the 1960s. But for Kawito villages, rubber remained the main source of income for them. Tekla Gunga, National EMTV News.
Rural Airstrips Agency is a company which works with the government to restore, rehabilitate and maintain rural airstrips around the country. Last week, they took a tour to the Western Province to visit and inspect rural airstrips in the area to determine if they are serviceable. Chief Executive Officer John Bromley says Rural Airstrip Agency is committed to working with rural communities to see them have access to basic services.
On their trip to Western Province, the CEO said the province has lots of floodplains and does not have good road access. The only way to have access to basic services is through air and water transport. He said there are 74 rural airstrips in Western Province alone, and they will look for donors and seek government support to see Western Province develop.
So we want to see rural communities get health services and education services, and we want to see them get community development services and other government services that they are entitled to. However, due to their isolation, often they do not have those services, and we are passionate about working alongside the communities to see services realized to them.
He said currently there are 125 rural airstrips in the country that are on their interest list. Some of these airstrips are already on established maintenance programs, while others are still under negotiations with local MPs and provincial governments to come on the maintenance program.
So the maintenance program is a supervised maintenance program that trains local people to be able to maintain the airstrip to the standard that is required for operators to be able to operate safely in and out of those airstrips. And then we have a rehabilitation program which we provide supervisory staff to work with the communities to see the airstrips rehabilitated to an acceptable standard.
They have successfully completed the maintenance program for the Balimo airstrip, and it will be ready to use once they release final reports to the airline operators. Rayon Lakingu, National EMTV News.
In Simbu, a small number of public servants were joined by members of the public to celebrate Repentance Day. Provincial Administrator Joe Nar joined the celebrations with a different approach as public servants held hands to pray. He urged public servants and political leaders to uphold the office they serve and for unity within the various stakeholders to ensure better delivery of services in the province. Simbu Provincial Government has continued to host the Repentance Day celebrations since its inception. Jiwaka Governor William Tongap has welcomed a national court decision dismissing an election petition filed by candidate Simon Kaiwe that challenged his win from the 2017 general election. The petition was dismissed by Judge Colin McKyle.
Governor Tongap, in a press conference in Port Moresby, said since the petition against him was over, he extended his gratitude to the people of Jiwaka for their patience and also to the petitioner and his supporters for accepting the decision.
I would also like to extend my appreciation to the law firms that were involved in the entire petition case, the Electoral Commission lawyers, Kimbu lawyers, and also the Kuma lawyers for taking this petition. I would also like to thank my supporters who have been patient with us over the entire period of the petition, and would like to encourage them to accept the decision as it is, and we move on.
The governor said he needed to continue with the challenges of setting up their new administration, develop infrastructure, education and health in the province, and also keep up with the government's work towards Vision 2050. Tongap's lawyer Michael Kuma, who is the principal lawyer for Kuma Lawyers, said before the trial there were quite a number of allegations of errors and omissions, illegal practices and bribery.
All the grounds were dismissed. That was in March, and in May 29th we ran the trial and made submissions on that's the only ground that survived the petition, and the ruling was made today.
Michelle Stephen, National EMTV News.
Church representatives and members of the Autonomous Region of Bougainville's House of Assembly have completed talks on active roles in ensuring a peaceful and violence-free referendum in 2019. The discussion, facilitated by UN Women, is also in recognition of women participation and their positive contribution to extending peace and unity in Bougainville. Susan Ferguson, UN Women Country Representative, says the link between churches, peace building, gender equality and women's empowerment are vital. This is Monday's news on your number one to watch. We take a look at stories making headlines overseas when we come back. Welcome back to the news. Turning overseas now. Following his visit to Ireland, Pope Francis has offered a plea for forgiveness and an apology for decades of abuse by Roman Catholic Church that went unchecked.
He told the crowd the church failed to provide abuse survivors with compassion or to look for justice or truth, and he asked for forgiveness. But even as he spoke, he's facing claims by a former top Vatican official that he ignored abuse allegations for years and should resign. More now from CNN's Delia Gallagher.
At the end of his two-day trip to Ireland, a trip in which sex abuse and the Church's response to it was one of the main topics of Pope Francis's speeches, the Pope himself on the papal plane with journalists returning to Rome fielded questions, including one about allegations made by his former ambassador to Washington, D.C., Archbishop Vigano, that Pope Francis knew about allegations of sexual abuse of seminarians on the part of former Cardinal McCarrick. Pope Francis told journalists that he had read the 11-page statement from Archbishop Vigano, which implicates Pope Francis and a number of other Catholic Church hierarchy officials. And the Pope responded in this way. He said, "Read the statement carefully and make your own judgment. I will not say a single word on this. I believe the statement speaks for itself. When some time passes and you have drawn your conclusions, I may speak." So Pope Francis essentially saying he's not going to engage with the accusations of his former ambassador to Washington. Now, one of the other questions that was raised during the weekend in Ireland on the part of abuse survivors and others was a question of an action plan at the Vatican. We heard that they didn't want to just hear words, they wanted to see action. Pope Francis was not directly asked about an action plan by journalists on board the papal plane, but he was asked about how he intends to hold bishops accountable for cover-up, and the Pope explained that although the bishops' tribunal, which had originally been planned, did not come to fruition, there is an office to judge bishops. The Pope says it is a separate office from the one which judges priests accused of sex abuse. And Francis said that the reason for the separate office is because it wasn't practical, he says, for different reasons, such as the different cultures of bishops. Not entirely clear what the Pope is referring to there, but what is clear after this press conference and weekend in Ireland is that although Pope Francis has dismissed the accusations made against him on the part of his former Vatican ambassador to the United States, there are still some outstanding questions for Pope Francis and the Vatican on transparency for bishops being held accountable for sex abuse and for the general response and action plan that people have been calling for from the Vatican.
A British Iranian woman is back in prison in Tehran after a 3-day release when she was able to see her young daughter. She has been in prison since April of 2016, accused of working with others to overthrow the regime.
Yeah, it really has been a day of ups and downs for Nazanin. Her family saying by the end of the day she's been left shivering, shaking, crying. Just a couple of days ago, her husband was here at CNN, Richard Radcliffe, and he told us then that they really hoped and believed that they were having positive signs that Iranian officials had invested some of their own political capital in this furlough for his wife and that this furlough would be extended. But he did say when talking to Halagarani his concerns for his wife if that didn't come to pass. This is how he explained it.
What state of mind is your wife in, though? How hopeful is she?
Well, gosh, she's been up and down, and you know, yeah. I mean, I spoke to her yesterday, and we didn't know any of this, and she was in a very miserable way. I mean, I think. Obviously, we'll get to on Saturday night, and if we haven't had any news that it's going to be extended, then I mean she won't be looking forward to going back at all. Yeah. It's been a long, hard journey for all of us, and with that comes real ups and downs, and you know the potential for panic and so on.
And the family have described now what's been a very harrowing day for Nazanin. In the morning, called into the prosecutor's office, the prosecutor there, and she was there with her lawyer. The prosecutor told them both that all that was required was a signature on her form to extend her furlough, but he didn't have it yet, but it was okay for her to go back to her house, that she didn't need to go to jail to wait for it. As she's on her way back to her family, to her mother, to her daughter at her father's house, she gets another phone call, we're told by the family, this time from the people that she's been dealing with, the Iranian officials saying that she's lived up to the terms of her furlough, that she hasn't tried to leave the country, hasn't gone to a foreign embassy and hasn't done interviews with journalists. So she's lived up to her part of the deal. They say, therefore, her furlough will be extended, no need to go to jail. Barely did she get home, though, then she gets another phone call, this time telling her to go back to the prosecutor's office again. The prosecutor now tells her that she will have to go to jail for just a few days to wait for those signatures. And at that point, she decides it's better to do that than go home and be pulled out of her daughter's arms in the middle of the night. That's her fear. But of course, she's very distraught, shivering, shaking, crying. There's a thing in the tail here as well. The family say that they've contacted the British Embassy in Tehran. The British Embassy, according to the family, say that they've been told by Iran's foreign ministry that Iran's judiciary hasn't extended her furlough, and there's no mention of a signature to get her back out of jail. So, of course, all of this very concerning for her family and a very trying, traumatic and bad day for Nazanin herself.
It's been a year since the brutal campaign by the Myanmar military against the Rohingya minority. A group of UN officials and government workers have announced it as ethnic cleansing. Some women are now talking publicly about their painful stories.
Refugee camps in Bangladesh, many women and girls harbor a painful secret. They are survivors of what the UN calls widespread sexual violence against the Rohingya, allegedly carried out by the military in Myanmar last year. Rape was, quote, a calculated tool to force them from their homes. Claims the government denies. More than 9 months on, a number of babies have been born as the result of rape. Little Yasmin was delivered in June. Her mother, Meher, says she was raped by soldiers who set fire to her village in September.
They demanded to rape me in exchange for sparing my children's life. I agreed to them.
Filled with shame, Meher tried to keep what happened from her husband.
I told my children not to tell their father about the incident, but they did anyway. Because of that, my husband wanted a divorce, but he couldn't leave me as I had no parents.
Women who survive rape in this community risk being shunned even by their families. For Meher, the baby would be a painful reminder of the horrors left behind.
I tried a lot to abort this child, but abortion was not possible. I went to the nurse and took pills for abortion, but they didn't work as they were supposed to.
Around 60 babies are born to Rohingya women in refugee camps in Bangladesh each day, according to UNICEF. The number of pregnancies resulting from rape is unknown.
Some, I'm told, are hiding their pregnancies, but I'm also told that many are simply having deliveries in their home, in their camp, unattended, or sometimes with local midwives.
Meher gave birth alone in this small bamboo shack. She and her husband have now forged a bond with their new child in these most difficult of circumstances.
Yes, I love her. My husband also loves her now, though he couldn't accept her at first. He adores the baby when she smiles and plays.
But the worry for some is the stigma these children could face when they grow up.
The greatest concern of the babies left behind is that they could grow up with a stigma or a label attached to them, which is the last thing we'd like to see for these babies.
For Yasmin, this could be one of the many challenges she'll face in the years ahead as she learns to call this refugee camp home.
There have been scenes of jubilation in Zimbabwe at the inauguration of a new president. After decades of dictatorship, Zimbabweans are desperately hoping for peace and prosperity.
The first new leader in 4 decades. And a show of stadium proportions to celebrate. The man now in charge is Emerson Mnangagwa, a former vice president to Mugabe. He was elected with the slimmest of margins and saw off a legal challenge from the opposition.
Now is the time for us all to unite as a nation.
Tens of thousands jostled to get into the stands, hoping for a view of the man who says he can fix the impoverished country.
We believe in him and we have awaited for a long, long time.
You see Zimbabwe got a big change. Yes, a very big change. Yeah, we are very happy.
The biggest challenge for the man nicknamed the Crocodile for his political cunning will be whether he can steer Zimbabwe's wrecked economy back on track and create jobs for a population of 16 million.
We will build the Zimbabwe we all want, brick upon brick, stone upon stone.
It remains to be seen how much influence the country's powerful military will exert over him and whether he can crack down on corruption as he promised voters he would.
The new president of Zimbabwe is being sworn in as I speak here. Now, this is the first time in 37 years that Zimbabweans have seen a president other than Robert Mugabe at the helm. This is a turning point for the country, and they've used today to ask the international community to help Zimbabwe to come in from the cold, to end sanctions.
We are starving. We don't have money. We've got sanctions. So it's very bad for us to have those sanctions because we won't prosper.
Across political divides, Zimbabweans are experiencing a sense of liberation.
Since he came in, we have got peace in this country. We have got freedom of speech in this country.
The country's artists say they're revelling in the newfound freedom.
So freedom of expression definitely has improved. Nobody bothers about you anymore.
You know, the excitement soon after you've just killed a snake or soon after you've removed what you thought was, what is a burden on you, a big stone on you, and you remove it and you're like,
and it's here on the streets and in the towns of Zimbabwe that real freedom will be tested and real prosperity is needed most.
This is National EMTV News. We take a breather now before we return with Trukai Sports.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. The Oil Search PNG Orchids team was announced today by PNG Orchids Executive Management Committee Chair Lady Ruth Waram. The team is in camp and will start preparations for this Sunday's clash against the Brisbane Broncos women's side.
Players were selected from the National Women's Rugby League Championship, which was held over the weekend at the Oil Search National Football Stadium. The team comprises of a mixture of players from the Northern, Southern, Highlands and New Guinea Islands Confederates. 7 players from Southern, 3 players from New Guinea Islands, 4 players from the Highlands, 4 from Northern and 3 players from Australia have been named in the 22-member team.
You know, watching the women play, I must say I was really excited about the prospects that we have for the women's game in PNG. The message to them will be to do the best of their abilities. When they don on the Oil Search PNG Orchid, they're ambassadors for our country, both on and off the field. So that's one of the key messages that we will be passing on to them.
The team went into camp yesterday and have been gelling well. Tahina Booth, Therese Aiton and Jenny Sue Hopper from Australia flew into the country last weekend and will start training with the team this week.
Played for the Jillaroos last year. 2017 she got Dally M Player of the Year. First woman to ever get the award. Therese Aiton, another former Jillaroo and former Queensland player. She plays hooker and also the sister of Paul Aiton. I did a lot of background check on these ladies as well. Tahina Booth, she has background in rugby league rep football in Townsville. Also played in other sports, rugby union, gridiron, and also represented Australia in the weightlifting. So, like I said, the girls that are brought in, I make sure I do a lot of research.
Wesley says selection was mainly based on defense. He believes they've selected a team that will put up a good fight against the Broncos.
On paper, that's pretty much what you see. It was mainly on defense. I really believe that we need to pick the best defensive side. We need to pick a young side for our future. And just, a mobile, just a team that really want to work for each other and work really hard. I believe we have that.
Speaking on behalf of Oil Search was General Manager Stakeholder Engagement Leon Baskins, who says they are pleased to support Women's Rugby League in the country and wish them the best at this weekend's match.
Obviously our goal is to empower women in the country through using sports and rugby league women to the messages of empowering our women in the country. We're very happy and excited about the pathways where we're heading towards rugby league as a whole, but in particular our women in rugby league.
The Oil Search PNG Orchids will take on the Brisbane Broncos women's NRL team on Sunday at Suncorp Stadium at 1:30 p.m. The match will be telecasted live on MTV. Elijah Levet, National NTV Sports.
This year's Oil Search Orchids team will see the absence of former captain Katie Niep, who has not been selected. Coach David Wesley says he has a few players in mind to lead the team and will announce the captain on Wednesday.
I have a few ladies that I have in my mind, but I need up until probably Wednesday after our training session to come up with that name. So I'll be naming the captain on Wednesday. My belief is our future's bright for our team, and once again I really like to thank PNG Rugby League and Oil Search for your support in appointing me in this job. And I'm, as a Papua New Guinean and for our women especially, I'm really excited about taking the team forward.
You're watching Trukai Sports. More after these messages.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. The SPPNG Hunters have been knocked out of the race to the finals of the Queensland Intrust Super Cup. After losing 38 points to 22 against the Central Queensland Capras, the Hunters dropped from 6th spot to the 7th on the Intrust Super Cup ladder.
After the last round of matches over the weekend, the SP Hunters' season run to defending their ISC title has come to an end. A win against the CQ Capras last weekend would have secured their spot in the finals playoff. Coach Michael Marum was disappointed with the team's performance. He says they started the match poorly, trailing 22 points to 8 at half-time.
No, just one of those really bad games. Bad start in the first half. Gave away 28 points and just chasing point all throughout the match, but yeah, it wasn't our best performance. Capras were arguing for the 2 points, and yeah, they played really well all throughout the match. Yeah.
He says too many errors were done in the match. The team failed in defense and completion of sets was poor.
You know, we scored a few tries and then gave away tries again. So you know, there was penalties given away. There was errors in the game. So. Yeah, it's one of those games where the guys just didn't turn up and to play.
Coach Michael Marum says this year was tough, having only won 3 away matches and losing 2 home games.
Changes in the players, performance-wise, there's just inconsistent performance from everyone across the board. So we just have to wait and see. We'll do a good review of the season and prepare well for next pre-season. Make sure we do well and go from there. Yeah.
Elijah Levet, National NTV Sports.
And that story wraps up Trukai Sports for tonight. Still ahead with the details for the next 24 hours.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
The weather details were proudly brought to you by Dulux, celebrating 50 years in PNG and the only paint made in PNG.
And weather forecast for the next 24 hours. Southern region, Port Moresby, few showers. Daru, cloudy periods. Kerema, rain showers and thunderstorms. Alatau and Popondetta, fine, partly cloudy. In the Momase region, Lay City, fine, partly cloudy. Medang, rain showers. Wewak and Vanimo, fine, partly cloudy. And New Guinea Islands, Lorengau and Kimbe, a shower or two. Kavieng, mostly fine. Kokopo, Rabaul, showers. And Buka, fine and cloudy. And in the Highlands region, all centers rain drizzle apart from morning fog.
The weather details were proudly brought to you by Dulux, celebrating 50 years in PNG and the only paint made in PNG.
And that's the news, sports and weather for today. Make sure to tune in at 8 p.m. this evening for My Province, My Country 43 Years On, a special program in the lead up to this year's independence anniversary. And that's it for National MTV News. It's bye for now.